Hello, hi everyone. Welcome to this Monday night gathering at the Scarboro United Church. It's a snowy, blustery evening in Calgary, and the diehards have arrived, and which is awesome. For those of you that didn't make it, hopefully you're watching us, and you'll tell us if you're watching us. So maybe I'm going to just chat a little bit about why we're doing this, and what the purpose is of getting together as a group. And I believe that if enough of us are on a path together to self-realization, to awakening, to connecting with the moment, to letting go of our old ways, that we can support each other in that process, and by our reckoning, there's probably, even though they're not all here this evening, there's probably 40 or 50 of us that have been coming off and on a regular basis, and my hope is that we develop a community. So we're doing potluck suppers so we can get together socially and spend time together, and experiment with not just dropping into our stories, but experiment with being present with each other, with caring about each other, with supporting each other in awakening. And it's tricky business, because we're all pretty convinced generally that what's happening in our life is the truth, and we repeat our stories over and over again, and through repeating our stories over and over again, we create our future. And so the idea of not living in fear, or not living in complaint, or not living in judgment, I think we have to want that, and then practice it. And practicing it on a daily basis, I believe, requires support. And that's not necessarily true, but I think with support there's a greater possibility that we can move into more of a place of truth. I started this journey myself about 40 years ago. Around 40 years ago, I was in my early 20s, and even before that, I had the question. Then the question was, who am I? What am I doing here? Why does it hurt so much? Why do I not fit in? Why, and I didn't buy the story in the beginning of that if I got a proper education, that I'd get a proper job, and that I would be able to have a proper life. I knew that there was something missing in that story, and I remember, it's a long time ago, I remember looking at yoga way, way, way before yoga was a thing in the West, and trying to do postures like a teenager. It was funny. I just remember trying to contort my body into these postures without any prep, and there certainly wasn't a yoga teacher in Moncton, New Brunswick, where I grew up, at the time. But I was looking at stuff, and I was thinking that there had to be more. I even remember reading the New Testament, digging through, because it was the only kind of the only thing that was around that I thought had some answers in it, and so I began a long, long time ago, and for me, where the journey led in my mid-20s was because I had actually found a solution for a while. My solution to how I felt for quite a while was drugs and alcohol. and it helped me to maneuver in this dense situation that we're living in, but that kind of turned around and bit me on the butt pretty quickly, and I woke up in my mid-20s and I was like, this is not going to work, and so I had to find my way out of that dead end maze, and I did, and I found a spiritual program that I began to work, and and in that program, got lifted up enough so that I wasn't in quite so much pain, and then I started reading books and listening to teachers, and I remember years and years ago listening to Tony Robbins on cassette, and it was quite a while though before I found a real teacher. Mid-'90s, I found a real teacher who, had spent many years in India, and he'd been with Osho, and he'd really spent his whole life. He was, 25 years older than I, and he'd really done a lot of work, and so I spent 14 years with him. And but the search never stopped, and been to India myself, and been to Peru, and always looking for this. Who knows what's going on here, and had pieces of it, and just not that long ago. I mean, I think that at one time I kind of thought I had the answer, and then I went and did the enlightenment intensive last fall, and it was like, wow, things clicked together for me when I did that intensive, and I realized that. At a different level, I knew that we were living in story. I knew that we screened everything through our perception of who we thought we were. But I didn't have it was more an intellectual than it was really in my system, so it just kind of came in the nick of time, because my mission that's been up for quite some time was to carry a message of awakening to people, and it's interesting that the universe, God, now whatever we call infinite intelligence, put me in the position last fall of really getting this whole thing at a deeper level, so what's happened for me is that my mission really is to share this as best I can, and I think that if we have a group of us that are sharing it together and supporting each other together, that we can really, I don't know what it looks like, but I see it's making a difference in a lot of people's lives, and I ask myself sometimes, what for? What is the end game? And I don't really know that. I just know that there's a lot of us living in fear and anger and guilt and shame and judgment and complaint and uncertainty, and I think that if we can shift a little bit, just a little bit, so that we're more present and we can see ourselves, we become self-aware enough to know that we don't know, then we can start to live much closer to the moment, and I think have a lot more fun. One of the things that's happened for me is I'm laughing a lot more. I'm having a lot more fun. So that's the deal, and I'm trusting. I don't know if that's the right word. I'm having faith, I guess is more the word, that life is unfolding as it should. I mean, I really stopped managing the show. Because all my management skills came out of my conditioned beliefs. How could I possibly be a great manager of my life if it came from out of fear, or it came out of some idea that I was missing something, or something was wrong? And so I've as best as possible on a moment-to-moment basis, I've relinquished the management of this life, and so try that on for size. Anyway, so that's a little bit to share with you. Hopefully you relate. Hopefully, you look at, how's it going? Wouldn't it be great to just surrender to the moment? I was listening to David Hawkins the other day, and he was talking to a friend of mine, and Alan Seinfeld. Alan, what's Alan's last name? Anyway, Alan was interviewing Hawkins, and Hawkins said that, he said, getting to unconditional love is easy. You just have to keep asking. And so in each moment to surrender, to also to ask the universal intelligence, which is a bit of a conundrum because it's not really separate from us, but somehow we talk to it as if it's separate from us. But ask, to be lifted up to unconditional love on a regular basis, and ask to be more compassionate, ask to be more understanding, ask to be more loving, and those things can happen in our lives. And as well as when we bring ourselves into each moment, what's there, as fear melts away and anger melts away and guilt and shame and those things melt away, is love. We lift up into love. And we'll talk more about that in a bit. So we're going to meditate for a little bit. And those of you that are watching, if you'd like to, we're going to, just for 10 minutes, we'll just take a few minutes and close our eyes and drop in. A lot of times, what I hear from folks is that meditating is I think that a lot of us are wanting to meditate and not really knowing how. And I hear that. And I hear that sometimes from people that they'd like to learn to meditate, but they don't want to go to a yoga studio, or they don't want to be a Zen monk, or they don't want to learn a Buddhist method. They just want to learn meditation. And so what we do is really kind of a no brand. It is not affiliated with any particular belief. It's just learning how to sit, watch our thoughts. So let's do that. Drop into your body for a minute. And the best way to come into this moment is through the breath. When we breathe in and breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. And the breath brings us right into the moment. If you focus on your breath, you can't be anywhere else. If the mind's really busy, just suggest to it. You can talk to your mind. You can just say, it's okay to relax. We're safe. Be present. In the breath, feel your body. We bring our attention into our breath and into our body. Just imagine the body getting lighter. As we breathe. There we go. Thank you. Just come back when you're ready. Did the timer go off? I didn't hear it. Phone go dead? Hi, you guys. Wow.
15 minutes.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, so I was getting close.
I've just fallen in love with meditation. I just been spending so much time meditating. It's amazing. I have something that I wanted to share. It has kind of come to my attention that when I share it with people, the idea of awakening, hardly any of us realize that we're not awake, because we don't have anything to kind of compare it to. So it's a bit of a challenge to talk about awakening. You know, people say, "Well, what do you mean awakening? I'm awake." Well, we don't know that we're not awake. It's hard for us to recognize that we've been programmed, and that our programming's in place. They say pretty much by the time we're 7 that we've kind of made our decisions about life, and everything comes through this screen of who we think we are, or what we think is going on in life, and so we're not. We see everything based on what our beliefs are and what our experience as youth has been. And a friend of mine sent me this, and he had his name in it, but I'm going to put mine in, and you can put yours in. And actually, Barry had written it. And Barry's a guy, so this is more guy related. But you can, you're not a guy. You can just kind of look at it from a different perspective. But he says, I have an identification pyramid. I have stories and ideas built on top of stories and ideas. You, society, or whoever, cannot mess with this structure, or it all comes crashing down. He says, I kill you if you mess with it. This is who I am. So the stories and ideas are who we think we are. This is who I am. If you criticize who I am, you kill me, so I must defend myself, or so it feels. So we have a whole story about who we are, and so if I challenge that, unless you're really done with it, if I challenge it, it's upsetting. You don't want to be challenged on who the story is. He goes on to say, I've gone through life gathering feedback to confirm my ideas. Ideas that make me feel good, and rejecting ideas that make me feel bad. He says, this is an idea. It's the guy idea. David is a good lover. Goes right into my pocket. Supports my belief about myself. Barry is so handsome. Also goes in the pocket. Or David, or James. James is so handsome. Goes saved. James is so good with the girls. In the pocket. Saved. Yes, I am, he says. I go out of my way to be noticed and fed. I deserve to feel good. I desire and I get pleasure. I desire to feel good. I desire and I get pleasure. On the other hand of the spectrum, I reject the ideas that I don't like. Like, you're stupid. So if somebody says you're stupid, what do you say? Fuck you. I'm not stupid. Or you're a psychopath. No, I'm not. I mean, that's an extreme, but, oh no, psychopaths are bad. I'm good. Shouldn't even be talking to me like that. It's wrong. I'm a victim. Fight or flight kicks in. I desire and get pain and suffering. I'm the world's greatest filter. David, you mostly suck, but I did like that one thing. So if somebody says, David, you mostly suck, but I did like that one thing, I knew it. I'm the best. It's the filter. I bend and twist to hear what I want. I need so badly to feel good because I do not want to feel bad. I consciously or unconsciously decide that I am ideas that make me feel good, and I am not ideas that make me feel bad. There's something wrong if I feel bad. My ego is just a collage of ideas stemming from feelings, a collage of ideas stemming from feelings. The idea of myself is largely based on the response of others. The idea of myself is largely based on the response of others. How others think and feel about me. Where some might run and hide, unable to risk, I cling to people like a lifeboat. I spend my time with people who have similar beliefs. I avoid people who challenge. I manipulate to confirm. I date. Oh, really? I date short, unattractive women. So I think, what he's saying, to make himself feel better in some way. My thoughts are just an idea of what is, an idea from emotion that I am holding on to. They are not truth from the whole. They are not truth from what is. I have built my brick house on a foundation of a swamp. I am bound to sink. I am bound to suffer. It seems that the foundation of my stories is the fear that I am separate and unconnected. I am not one with the universe. I am not one with all. It feels like emptiness, loneliness, worthlessness, death. I am falling down an endless hole. I am floating in the vastness of space alone. It is terrifying. My life, my identification pyramid, is the protection and avoidance of this feeling, immuning myself in pleasure to feel alive, connected, important. Pain comes with the pursuit of pleasure. Pain comes with the pursuit of pleasure, and I journey further from home. The harder I try, the more lost I become. What is so wrong about feeling bad? Am I really not the bad feeling I'm experiencing? What if, instead of rejecting, I accept? When I accept, I allow and feel. The feeling is free. Acceptance is peace. With peace comes joy. With joy, love. With love, God. I am home. Acceptance is love. Rejection is the reaction to fear. Are you love or fear? Own it. So what I liked about that is that we can identify, and part of, if we're on a journey of awakening, a big part of the journey is identifying, how we're living. That is, like he said, trying to arrange the world to suit us, and only hearing or seeing part of the story because we only want to hear or see part of the story, and so we kind of stumble through life disconnected because we don't allow ourselves to be connected to everything that's happening, and so I like that identification pyramid. And it's just another tool for us to look at it, of how we can be, disconnected in the story. Does anybody relate to that? Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. Anybody have an example?
I think for most of my life, I was trying to live up to other people's expectations. So it's kind of a similar pyramid, like I was always wanting my brother to approve of me,
Yes.
or my lovers to approve of me.
Yes.
And then I could never live up to their expectation because I didn't even really know what their expectation was.
Mm-hmm.
If they did voice it,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I was hearing what they were actually asking.
Yes. The simplicity of that for me is that somehow, and I don't know how it happened, I suppose if I was kind of more studied in the psychology of things, I'd be able to pinpoint who's already written all this, but somehow in my really young age, like in, probably 5 or 6 years old, I got disconnected. I realized there was something wrong with me, in my mind. My identification pyramid actually set up differently than Barry's. Mine set up that there was something wrong, and I felt disconnected from spirit, or I felt disconnected from the whole, and so I didn't, come through with this idea of me in love. I came through with this idea of me not being good enough. And so often my screen is looking for things to confirm that. Can anybody relate to that? Yeah, to confirm that somehow I'm not smart enough, or I'm not good looking enough, or I'm not actually the things that Barry talked about were actually, they're not the things that I pick up. Mine are more, and if I'm living in that unconscious way, and I'm picking up the things that aren't working, or the things that aren't good enough about me. So
that's similar to my story.
Yes.
So do you think that when living in that I'm not good enough, every single person that I come into, I'm going to project that I'm not good enough, and then they're going to project back to me that I am not good enough, that they're going to have this expectation of me that I'm never going to be able to live up to. It's almost like that's where I say that we're creators, is that everything that I'm thinking of myself is what I'm going to experience through the person that I'm with. So
Absolutely.
If I can get to a place of love and acceptance,
yes,
I'm now seeing things through I'm seeing the illusion, the reality through love. So then everything that I'm going to filter back to me is love and acceptance.
Yes.
So I witness that now all the time. It's like I'll go to a restaurant, and because I'm not living in fear of anything, everybody that surrounds me accepts me, even the server. But if I'm living in fear and I shrink myself down, the way I see them is the way I'm seeing myself.
Yes.
Because they'll even look angry at me.
So I think it's amazing that, that you're there, that you've got that. And I don't, I know we talk about it a lot, that it kind of comes and goes, and it's sometimes it's fleeting, right? And that's exactly what I'm hoping to help, our group to get to. And most of us have tried to get there through therapy, or through affirmation, or through, kind of willing our way there. And my experience is that doesn't work. Not that some of that isn't necessary, or some of that isn't appropriate, but the realization that I'm not that story of me, came to a greater degree in the Enlightenment Intensive. But it also, how do we each moment bring love into the moment when we're in those other states, like fear or anger or judgment or guilt or shame, and when that, to recognize that, and then bring love into each moment. Hawkins talks about surrender, or letting go of those things, and so that we can lift up into the state that you're talking about.
When I drop into some states where I'm in fear, it feels like it's shifted my entire reality, where it's gripping me to the point where I'm almost keeled over. So I look at it is that the more we come up to a higher vibration, or we start to live in that love space,
Mm-hmm.
when we do drop into that space of fear, it's not as long.
Yeah.
It doesn't
Well,
seem to stay there as long.
because we know how to get out of it.
Maybe, I don't know. Because before, when I'd go into it, it was so subtle.
Yes.
It would be like, it would kind of like build up to it, and then I'd just kind of sit in it and stay in that.
So imagine that
for a
you know,
long period.
I'm just picking this number out of the air, but let's say 75% of the population of the planet, maybe even more, are living in that all the time.
I have.
Yes, and they don't even know that they're in it. You know, we don't even, I mean, and you can't imagine what another state looks like until you've come out of it. Is that your experience? You know, when you kind of move out of, yes, yeah. And so imagine that the possibility here is to shine the light on that stuff. So for Dan to see, and James to see, and Nathaniel to see that we can be stuck in it. You know, we can be stuck in resentment for days and days. It actually seems like I mean, we've been there so long we don't even know we're there. And so that's what my game plan is to, you know, have us come together at different levels, to have you come and be with the group and share your love, and you come and be with the group and share where you're at, you know, and you've moved in this last year tremendously, you know, and so that we lift each other up. Is that a crazy thing? No. So that's the plan, you guys. So let's, you know, lifting each other up together. It's almost impossible to see ourselves when we're stuck in it. The eye cannot see the eye. It seems like the only way to be.
I feel that is one of the ways that I get out of it, is the support
Yes.
from my partner. So when she sees that I'm keeled over, she doesn't say anything. She's just there with me until I come out of it myself. But just being able to hold that space and be present, and is really where
She doesn't try to fix you?
Yeah.
Stop it. I love that girl.
Me, on the other hand, I seem to
Try to fix her?
sometimes fall into that old paradigm of trying to like say something
Yeah.
to resolve the situation, when it usually just makes it worse.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's the deal. You know, I was saying to Trevor today, and maybe to Nathaniel yesterday, I was saying, why would people want to wake up? What's the sense? Why? And I didn't have a reason. I just felt driven, actually. And I think some of us know there's something missing. We're like, what's missing here? What's not in line? You know, and for many of us, we're not sure what it is. We just know that there's something not quite right. And so we're, you know, and I think that's growing. I remember when I first started, I started looking, and there was only one bookstore in town that had, maybe two, that had, you know, like books, spiritual books or self-help books or whatever, you know, and now you go to Chapters and there's just like aisles and aisles of books that are, many of them are high vibration awakening books, you know, and there's so much, you know, there's so much on YouTube now. I the other night I was, you know, it goes on. Alan Watts. I listened to he has a book called The Book. Have you seen it? The other day I listened to the whole thing in one day, just the book, and it's so good, you know. So we have access to all these masters, and so that's the plan, you guys, to awaken together. And you know, some of you know that I'm in recovery. I've been sober in the 12-step program for many, many years, and I watch new guys come in, and they stand in the room and they look around and they recognize, first of all, that everybody in the room gets them. Everybody in the room has had the experience of being totally lost And is that somebody coming in, James? Maybe looking for us? Yeah, just check. Everybody in the room has had the experience of being totally lost at even maybe a much deeper level than many of you could imagine. And so I'm back to I'd lost my train of thought for a second. But so they come into a room, a 12-step room, and the room is full of people who have really awakened to a certain level. They've awakened to the fact that how they were living wasn't working for them. And they've awakened to the possibility, because of these people that they're surrounded by, the possibility that they don't have to live that way anymore. But the allure, if you will, of the old way of living, and I don't just mean using drugs and alcohol, but I mean thinking, is strong. And to bust out of it is almost impossible. For it really, really has to be, we really have to want it, and I know that in the last 40 years that I didn't know what it was, but I knew that there was something more, a bigger connection, a more awakening, that had to be available, because people were saying that it was, so it became a priority for me. Most of my adult life, it's been in at least the top three. A lot of it, it's been the number one authority. I spent fortunes traveling around the world to be with teachers, because I knew that there had to be something better than how I was living. And I was living in the lower realms of often fear. And fear, like James just said, creates our reality. And anger creates our reality. And I didn't want to live in that reality anymore. What a job to come out of it. It is, some people will say, well, it's just a decision. Well, yes, and it is just a decision, but I didn't realize that the decision was a decision for love, a decision for to be of service, to carry the message. And it's more than just a casual decision. It's a real strong decision to come out of this old way of being. So that's the possibility. That's what I believe we're offering, is to do this together and this year.
The thing is though, if I don't have somebody that's a conscious partner, when I dropped in it, I could be in it for days and never see anybody for days.
You just call me.
But I wouldn't. When I'm in that state,
yeah,
I don't think to call anyone.
Yes.
So to get support, if we're going to create a community for support, we should be checking in with people on a regular basis, especially if their tendency is to get into that state.
Yeah.
Right? Yes, I have a conscious partner. I'm only in that state for maybe 10 minutes, 20 minutes if I drop into it.
Well, and when we were roommates, we used to pop each other out of it. Yes.
But I think that's the thing. What we're trying to create is a community that we can support each other.
Man, yes.
We have to take action to support each other.
You could be the lead man on that buddy system. Sincerely, I think that's such a great idea. And I've been, just so you guys know, I know quite a few people who have done a lot of work in this awakening game, and I'm kind of out scouring the bushes and finding them and asking them to come and be with us, so that they can support more people in awakening, and because most of us know that the key to in some ways staying awake is to help others. It really is. And so if we create a community, which we are creating, it's not an if, we are creating a community of people who want to be, who have the intention to be more conscious, then it's a beautiful place for people who are more conscious to come and help other people become more conscious. And so, yes, truly, and we could have a buddy system where we call each other once a week to just really check in, how's it going, and and where we actually, can drop into a little bit of complaint for a few minutes. Say, Jesus, this went bad or that went, and
I think we should talk to the ones that we're
laugh about it.
being with and see where they're at, see what level they're at, right? I mean, you don't want to say level, but I mean, are they prone to drop into that for days and days?
Sure. I think what happens is I think that people don't realize that how amazing life can be, or we're so caught in Maslow's lower in survival. That we're so caught in survival.
You guys know where the A meeting is?
That it's hard to see. We're like worried about the rent, and we're worried about whether the husband's staying or leaving, or whether the kids. We're caught up in the day-to-day struggle of life, and so it's hard to make time for this. I actually did a post about that today on Facebook. I think after everything gets sorted out, I'll have peace in my life. And the post said, well, after we have peace in the life, everything will get sorted out. And so we're working on the wrong end of things. And many of us are thinking, once my finances are okay, I can take time to work on my spiritual life. Or once my physical health is okay, I can have more time to work on my. And it's just not so. It's not so. When we're more present, we're in our full potential, and our life comes to us. And I know this from a fact, because I spent most of my life having kind of spirituality, even though I was searching all over here and business over here, and I thought, well, I have. And still trying to run the show over here, and instead of turning it all over, and realized that I'm actually living this experiment now of saying, okay, I'm not in control. I'm surrendered around everything, and so I've given up the idea of organizing whether I'm in a relationship or not. It's not my business, and where I work or not. It's not my business. I'm just in meditation with my intention is to follow directions, and it's sometimes a little scary, but it's no more scary than when I was running the show. Really, it's not even anywhere near as scary. It's hardly scary at all, actually. I say it's scary, but the truth is, it was way more scary when I was running the show, like way more. So, James, you're absolutely right. We could do more check-ins, like have our little group and check in with each other. There is really about 60 or 80 of us. I know on our we have a Facebook chat group, and on that chat there's 145 who have come, some a few times, some more on Monday nights. And yeah, maybe I'll call them all and see, are they interested in having, the possibility of being supported and supporting. And like when we do this, we're going to do a one-day thing. And
So I do think that when we start to connect with each other, we start to tune into each other, and we'll actually, if we listen to our intuition, we'll know when to call a person. Especially if we're energetically spending time with that person, whether it's like in the physical, me sitting with somebody, but even if I'm calling them on a regular basis, we start to actually connect intuitively with that person.
Energetically, yep.
Energetically, so they can, if we get to that level, we can actually, hey, I should be calling this person today.
Yep.
A lot of times we don't listen to those things.
You like that, Nathaniel? Mm-hmm. All right. Dan, you think it's a good idea?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Because the other thing is that many of us are loners. And that's ego. The idea that, that we pull away, we isolate. That's a story. We don't have to do that. We have to, I think, be present enough to recognize that we're here collectively, and that if you're lifted up, I'm lifted up, and we're all lifted up together. So yes, I so think that's what a great idea. You can organize that.
I don't think that's part of the human experience, really, based on some things that I've experienced in my life, where I was, in my heart, really wanted to talk to a certain person, And, so one time in particular I'm thinking of, this happened more than once. I'm out in the park. I just intensely wanted to talk to this person. I won't get into how I was behaving, but I might have been yelling at the stars or something. I definitely was yelling at the sky. I wanted to talk to this one person, and suddenly my cell phone rings, and this person's on the other end of the phone. It's like, I don't know, I just felt like I should call you, so she just called me in that moment, right?
Yeah.
It's happened to me more than once.
Well, for me too, and I think that's part of what we're building here, is that, and not with the whole idea of lifting each other up, there's a fine line between, because sometimes people want to live in their misery, they want to live in their story, they want to live in their problem world. So how do we lift people out of that? They really have to want that, to be, and we're not going to call it positive or negative, but to be awakened to the fact that we create that world, and we can live in love, live in acceptance. The 1 day thing we're doing on March 21st, the part of the context is, or purpose is radical acceptance. I had it written down here. The purpose of that day is to people be themselves, so that they accept themselves exactly as they are. So the whole idea of self-awareness is we can't really accept ourselves if we don't see ourselves. And we can see ourselves by being in relationship with each other. So the whole thing is that we grow in acceptance and love. If we're off on our own, it's, lone wolfing it, being pulled, away from people. It's hard for us to see ourselves, isn't it? Yeah.
That's the ego saying that I'm separate.
Yeah. Yes, and we physically do separate, though, and that's the whole idea of creating a community. Maybe we should rent a great big friggin' house.
I'm working on it.
Oh, all right, great big house. Well, we have a reasonably good sized one right now, but yeah. So anyway, that's the idea, you guys. The whole thing is that for the most part, when we're stuck in survival, it's hard to see out of this. And my goal is to kind of I want to be a jailbreaker. I am a jailbreaker. Help as many of us get out of that jail of our belief systems.
It's funny, make sure I'm not quite.
Yes.
The jail is actually not locked.
Well, no, of course it's not locked.
It's like it's got the chain on it with the lock on it without it actually being. We just can't see that.
A nice analogy, of course. It doesn't have a ceiling. but it's the one of our own making, and we all have been in it. Have you been in it? Yes, so seeing that the story really isn't us is the beginning of freedom, and I think that really solidifies as we give it away, as we help others, and to see that we're amazing creatures, we're spiritual beings, we're gods in a way. We were given the story of and Jesus talked about, that anything that he could do, we could do. And in the Christian story, I and my Father are one, he said, and you are also. I love this little connection that we were given a prayer in the Christian teachings, and the prayer started out with "Our Father." Now he said that he was his Father, and then he said, "He's your Father." There was no difference in his story and our story, and everything he could do, we could do, And it's a great story. I think we just got a little lost in making him special in some way. And I might be blasphemy here, but I'm just saying that we all have the possibilities if we're living in the moment. If we're here right now, if we're in truth, in love, it's all, the doors are open for us, in my opinion.
Yes, David, when you talk about, to me, you talk about being bonded or in bondage to our own thoughts and our emotions.
Yes.
I agree that we can be free of that bondage.
Yes.
And feel good in moments, regardless of our situations around us. Right, so I know personally, over the past year and a half, my living situation, my financial situation, hasn't changed a lot. In some ways, it's got worse. But my emotional well-being has grown immensely, right? Just by being aware of the fact that, my happiness doesn't depend on where my money is. It doesn't depend on where I live. It doesn't depend on the relationship I'm with. I'm in my job, my surroundings. That stuff is all, it's within me. It's in my control.
Yes.
So I pray my way out of this easily, right? So I agree with you when you say that we shine a light on the things that are keeping us in bondage, that we can get free from that bondage.
Yeah.
It's totally true.
Yeah.
If there's some days as I walk around, I can find myself, I recognize, oh man, I'm just mad right now. I'm all tense. And I just, in that moment, I can say, look, I'm mad. I don't want to be mad. I want to feel okay. And all that anger just kind of melts away. And then it's replaced with a sense of peace.
So, bringing, I call it God into the moment, or love into the moment, awareness or consciousness into the moment. And it does melt. The anger, we breathe. Oh, look at that. I've been really pissed. And it disappears, so that's, that is consciousness. There's this idea that consciousness is separate from us in a way, but I think we are consciousness, and I guess consciousness is kind of the same as we are love. Love isn't separate from us. We can't get love. We can't even actually give love. We can just be love, and it's a beautiful thing. So yes, I wanted to tell a story about the difference in the times that we're in right now. Look at, the people who are part of our crew, many of them are not here tonight, but we're just regular folks, right? We're in a way, we're regular folks. And yet we have access to the highest level of spiritual information. And for many, 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 many years, eons, the religions of the day didn't actually intend for people to awaken. And their story was that when you die, you'll get your reward. And it was so that people could at least go through their life looking, kind of obeying the rules, and all in this hope that in death they would go to Valhalla or heaven or somewhere where there was 100 virgins waiting for them. Or do you know what I mean? And we don't have. We're at a time in the evolution of mankind, of humankind, when we can evolve we can jump level hugely if we have the intention for this. And the old stories don't fit anymore. And we have the opportunity, I believe, to live in love, live in unconditional